I can't sing as well as Roger Waters. Hey, it's Reed here. I didn't really do an intro before, so I'll do it now, and that won't make sense to anyone else because this will be the first thing you see. But what I'm going to do is I picked up the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon 50th anniversary Atmos Blu-ray disc, the music disc. I'm loving that more of these are coming out. It's a great way to experience the music and have an excuse for them to remaster it into Atmos in a lossless format, because I've watched this before, or sorry, listened to it before on Apple Music, on my Apple TV 4K in Atmos, which is a lossy format, but it still sounds great there. And I'm going to share my experience with the music on the disc version, so I can directly compare it to the streaming one. And I'll also give you some of my thoughts on the features of the disc. And there's some interesting little bits of information and tools in there. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. Thanks. All right, so here is my old school Samsung Blu-ray player. I thought I might capture what the opening looks like for the new Dark Side of the Moon Atmos disc. I'm gonna turn it up a bit. Pretty well done. The menu says multi-channel in on my Denon, so the menu isn't actually in Atmos, but it is nicely in surround sound, which sounds amazing. The frame rate of the animation in the background is a little jaggy, but I'm not here for the visuals. So when I go to the audio menu, it does give me some options for the various different mixes. I'm very intrigued by this DTS HD Master Audio Stereo Mix. Although it does also have a 24-bit 196 uncompressed stereo mix, and a 24-bit 96 kilohertz uncompressed one for the 5.1, but we're really all here for the Atmos. I'll get into it a little bit in the setup screen, but it is worth mentioning their 5.1 mix is very interesting. I'll tell you all about it in a sec. So if you want to see and go to a specific song on the album, you can just go to songs, and it's got all of the songs from the album on it that you can jump right to. If you've got a favorite that, you know, oh, I gotta play money, gotta get people hearing all those ching-chings all over my Atmos setup, this is where that is done. The setup is where things get really interesting though. So there's Blu-ray credits, nice to check out and see who actually mastered this. But we also have the 5.1 and the Atmos setup. So as I was mentioning, there are some really interesting features on this disc, including, I'll just go back to the main menu and show you again. It's a little loud with the background music, but if you go to setup and you go to Atmos setup, you'll actually be treated to a proper calibration. It even shows the layout of all of your speakers, and some really interesting background on some of the mixing and historic mixing versus the current mixing, especially of 5.1 surround mixes. One thing I did notice, I wouldn't mind everyone taking a look at this, you might notice their layout has all of the speakers kind of on axis all around the surround setup, except for the front, left, and right, and the rear. surrounds. Those ones have a little bit of toe out. So is this the team producing this disc making a recommendation? A little bit of toe out. I think that's always a good thing. I have my Kefs here, the LS50s, with a little bit of toe out because of their coaxial design. Yeah, so anyway, that is pretty interesting. It even has callouts. This is a 7.1.4 Atmos setup, so it's actually nice because it's got callouts and pink noise for all of those channels. So if you don't have something like the Spatial Audio Calibration Toolkit, you can actually use this to do some pink noise level setting and some speaker callouts for your Atmos rig. And now I'll get into the really juicy part. So the really interesting part about this, at least for me, I'm probably the only one, is the text on here. And you can actually hit next through and it gives you some extra information. But essentially what it says is, not here, but when you're doing the 5.1 setup, you actually have to, if you've got an Atmos configuration and want to listen to the true 5.1, is you have to swap out your rears and your surrounds. So I can imagine the best way to do this is just to switch the speaker terminals, the speaker wire connections on the back of your AVR. They say the reason that they've done this is because they have mixed it for kind of an old school original style 5.1 where the surrounds, quote unquote, are actually behind you. And you can see this in old AVRs. They show the surrounds are actually quite a bit back. And that creates, it's less easy to do like a phantom speaker between like the right and the rear right because it's a much greater distance, but it means that those sound effects, especially ones on a great disc like this, are actually coming from behind you as opposed to kind of on the side. My speakers in my setup are quite a bit back anyway. I may play with that setup just to see how it sounds. Maybe that will be for another video. But this was really interesting to me that they've got all of this calibration set up. It looks pretty close to what Dolby recommends for Atmos. But that one part where they said, oh, you've got to swap your speakers because there was no way for them during their mixing to say 5.1, but old school, 5.1, but where the side surrounds are really rear surrounds. So I thought that was amazing. I wonder if because of this disc, some AVRs will allow you to do 5.1, but redirect all of the surrounds to the rear surrounds if you have the 7 bed layer or more speakers. So that's really interesting. I'd love to hear what people think about that. It's also worth mentioning, I think I mentioned in another part, they actually want you to listen to this at 85 decibels. And I don't know about any of you, but I've got my listening space set up in my living room, and I tried it at 80 decibels, and it's shaking things off of my bookshelves and stuff like that. So I'll show some SPLs later, but I found it was comfortable listening at about 70, 75. As soon as it starts getting up to 80, it's, you know, it may be nice, you get the better dynamic range, but you're not, I'm not enjoying it as much. With my setup, with these Kefs, they're great. They can go quite high volume without distortion, and they're not fatiguing, but at the same time, that's a lot of SPL. So keep that in mind when you're listening to it, is they want it to be loud, so loud. We are going to do some demo listening. Desmond is joining us. Unfortunately, the calibration on the disc says to set everything to 85 decibels. I'm not going up that high, so I did it at 80 to see what it sounds like, so you guys can watch my reaction to it. I'll probably cut the sound so I don't get flagged for copyright infringement, but I'm just gonna hit play and you guys can watch me. What do you think, Desmond? Is it good? I think he thinks it's too loud. What did you think, Desmond? Did you like it? What's your first impressions? Makes you want to hide? Yeah. It's not Desmond approved. All right, first impressions. The disc is brilliant. The high level, my space is just not suited for going up to 85 dB, let alone 80. So I was hitting some subwoofer issues, so I turned it down. It goes loud, and what's nice about it at that volume is it's very crisp and clear. My first impressions to just the intro and the first track on the album is that the mix is definitely about immersion instead of effects. So it's about being wrapped around the sound as opposed to some of the ones where you have very discrete parts of the instrumentation all around you, with, Roger Waters' touches of the effects. They have put that into the space. Yeah, and when I talk about the effects, I mean the clinking of the cash registers, and other effects that are throughout this album. They do go around in the intro, and then I've heard this mix on Apple Music and Atmos, the lossy version, and you hear it in that mix, but it's just a little crisper, cleaner, which is really nice. All right, so I've been listening to quite a few of the songs on it. If you're not familiar with their record, it's just a seminal piece. It's classic, one of the best rock albums that was ever produced, and hence why they're re-releasing it in a remastered, polished form. And it was very experimental, so influenced so many artists after it. But this review isn't really about the album. You kind of like it or you don't. It's your thing or it's not. I grew up listening to it, had my kind of Pink Floyd phase in high school, and whatnot, and it's great. So I would say it is the best version I've ever heard. I've heard it on vinyl and nice systems. I've heard it on CD, the streaming Atmos version, but this one is just, bar none, it's the best. It's high quality, everything. The extra dynamic range of the lossless mix is just amazing. It's just crystal clear. You can just hear all the effects all over the place. Time and money to the more popular ones, but there's a reason they're more popular. They're just really well done, and all the effects from it, of the clocks and the cash registers and the clinking of the coins, is just crystal clear, and they're all like in space around you. It really puts you into the music and really immerses you, and that's the point of it. I find it's hard to sit down and pay attention to music, but when that first little clink of the money, the cash register starts at the start of Money, I'm just like sucked right into it. So highly recommend it. And if you haven't heard this album, you'll be spoiling yourself by hearing this version first, but it is the best version. Some of the best musicianship too. Like, it's so well written, but the performances, some of the guitar solos in here are just the best. There's saxophones and plenty of other instruments in it. It's really good. So I'm going to continue on, and then I'll give you some final thoughts. All right, so I've listened to the entire album, listened to a few sample tracks again. Again, this album is amazing. Best reproduction of it, and this new mix, this new mastering in Atmos really, really shines on the disc. So my final verdict, I can unequivocally recommend this. Whether you're a huge fan and just want to have the best experience with this recording, I think you will have that with this. And I think I got it for $35 Canadian. That's not huge. Blu-ray movies go for about that these days. And even for those who haven't experienced it, I think it'd be a great first experience with it. And for those who just want a demo disc to throw in their system, to show off, to test, to hear subtle nuances of their system, this is the one for it. So that's my verdict. 2 big thumbs up from this dad on his day off. If you like this video, let me know any suggestions for other videos and reviews. I love these. If I get a little time on my days off, I put them together and do it all on my phone and hopefully get it up within a few hours. Thanks, and have a great one. Enjoy your setup. I hope you enjoyed the show. This disc even has call-outs. Like and subscribe and all that jazz.